Hi folks, editing Sara here. This is the second part of our very long discussion of the episode Coup by Clam. So once again, we have content warning for discussions of transphobia, misogyny. We're going to get a lot into anti-Semitism this time. Content warning for all the things. So we're back for round 2, Coup by Clam 2, or Electric Boogaloo. Now with even more
anti-Semitism. Yeah, that's where we left off, was right in the middle of the anti-Semitism.
Yes. Oh boy.
Now, to be fair, I was saying that the Doctor's extortion plan was good, not that the Doctor as an anti-Semitic caricature was good. So I just want to clear that up. Explicitly.
This is another case where they tried to reference something and fell ass backwards into anti-Semitism in this case, because they were inspired by the child catcher from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. And have you both seen Chitty Chitty Bang Bang?
Yes.
I haven't.
Yes.
So this is a film, Dick Van Dyke, from the 60s. It's a musical about a flying magical car and the magical adventure, which is all a dream, where they go to this magical kingdom with this king who doesn't want to share his toys. So all children get captured by this gangly man, swarthy guy with a black suit and black hat and prominent hooked nose and gaunt features, who captures children. And
oh yeah, that's definitely not blood libel.
Yeah.
For the record, that's definitely blood libel.
Yeah, and it's terrifying. Like I you know what? I'm going to show you a picture.
While you're pulling that up, I will say my first thought went to I think he's the torture assistant in The Princess Bride.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was like, his mannerisms and his intonation hit that character for me in my memory. But now that you bring up Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, it's difficult to separate the two.
Here are images of...
Oh, yes. I see exactly what they were going for. They really did capture the same face.
They really did. It really did come from a poison tree.
Yeah, I'll say. So to break this down, for those of you who are not familiar with the stereotype at play here, although I feel like this is reasonably common knowledge at this point, but you never know. Jewish caricatures tend to have swarthy skin, long hook noses, beady little eyes and bushy eyebrows. They tend to have red or thinning hair, and they tend to, if they're guys, they tend to wear all black. There's this sort of like hook nose plus pot belly that's supposed to sort of emblematize the greedy Jew. Because the idea is that they're trying to get all of your money, which is all about the fact that in areas of the world where Christianity took hold, it became illegal for Christians to lend anybody money for profit. And so the Jews did it because it was one of the only jobs they were allowed to do. And so they ran all the banks and stuff. And then people forgot about the reason that the Jews were in this position, and they still hated the Jews. And so they were like, oh, well, every evil that is money related is actually about the Jews. Yay! So this is where that stereotype comes from. On top of that, the blood libel story, the first, I'm going to call it complete version of the blood libel story, where they decided that Jewish rabbis were stealing Christian children to drain their blood for use to make their Passover matzah, which is completely nonsensical if you know anything about Judaism, by the way, but that doesn't matter. So that came from a case in, I believe it was 1500s England, where a young boy disappeared and his body was found later in the woods, and they had absolutely no reason to point a finger at anybody, but they did. But that you'll see repeated over and over and over again, in all sorts of ways from then on. The idea that that Jews are secretly trying to control the world is because they're greedy, is because they run the banks, and the idea that Jews want to steal good white Christian children is, this is behind they're transing our kids panic as well, and also the Great Replacement theory, because that all comes from the Elders of Zion, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which was a Tsarist propaganda piece written by secret police, trying to shift blame in Tsarist Russia off of the Tsar and onto the Jews. And people bought it and still kicked out the Tsar.
I should also point out that this stealing children bullshit is also put on Romani peoples as well.
Absolutely.
And they are also painted with similar caricature, as the same very similar kind of visual caricature, as is the same kind of stuff is also often put on Middle Eastern people, but it's sort of like there's the Romani and the Jewish people are always painted as a threat from within, and so suspicious from that perspective. And then the Middle Eastern, where the horde at the gate.
Much like indigenous North American peoples are often also painted as the horde at the gate, in a very similar way. Oh, they'll kidnap your pretty white girl children. Like, it is an unfortunately common fear-mongering tactic. But in this case,
but culturally in our stories, it is most associated with Jewish people, this particular child stealing myth. Yeah.
So here we have this doctor who is clearly an outsider within a white community, who is, based on this character who is very clearly hinting at blood libel with the children snatching, with his thinning hair and his giant nose and his pot belly and his extortion scheme and his funny little accent. He's argumentative and he's clever, and he's even a doctor, which is another, Jewish stereotype. This one is sort of a self-perpetuated stereotype. Is like, oh, they all are doctors and lawyers, like, hi, that's not true either. But it does make for some funny memes about Jewish parenting.
Yeah, well, that's just immigrant parents is always wanting you to be a.
So it's very on the nose. But
the other thing that comes in with, because this is a whole with them trying to do gender thing, is that there's often with an otherized, anytime there's an otherized group, there's also often a kind of a gender transgression aspect, and there is with this guy as well. We can see he has a very pregnant looking belly
and his
a
very effeminate
nose. So we've got sort of like the, both genders through a cracked mirror kind of thing to him. He's so he's very much monsterized. It's just, you can see where they were thinking, these are the child catcher from, this is nightmare fuel for a lot of people. So like, I can see where they're like
flash on the screen the always has been meme.
Well, I was thinking specifically of the one from the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. I know it was nightmare fuel for me as a kid because this is one of the first films I ever saw. We when we're kids, we get these stories without the context of the, this has been steeped in our friend Lonnie Diane Rich actually calls it terroir, which is a idea from winemaking, that what's in the grapes gets in, or what's in the earth gets in the grapes, gets in the wine. So the soil that you grow in, you passively collect all of these biases, all of this cultural stuff that if you don't examine, you then repeat. And so, I don't know what the creators of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang were thinking when they included this character with this prejudice. It was the 60s, so they may well have had, they were definitely living in a world more saturated with conscious bias, whether or not they held those biases, and less inclination to examine them. And they produced this character that, became kind of nightmare fuel and cultural touchstone for the next generations. And the creators of Farscape included this, wanting to reference this and wanting to reference other stuff. And with, I doubt that they were consciously wanting to portray, wanting to play on. I think given the we've lived with this show for some time, and I think for the most part, these folks were not consciously trying to pass on any particular biases, but they were not examining the biases that were in their work when they were passing it on, and they were just thinking that this was a character to reference.
And that's entirely understandable. And especially if they were thinking about, like you said, the sort of like monsterized dual gender thing, it actually plays in really well to the story because he gets emasculated when Rachel bites off his nose.
Yes, he gets castrated.
We do love a well-used bad theme.
Do we? Do we though?
Like it's perfectly applied horribly. So for those of you who are watching the YouTube version of this, and just in case editing Sara didn't tell you, our clothes are different. We're recording this episode in two parts because I underestimated how long this particular discussion was going to take when we were recording the first part. We were cooking at 90 minutes, y'all, and like weren't stopping. And I was just like sitting there and like, oh my God, because I came into this discussion with the both of you with an awareness that, wow, this episode was bad. And like, wow, they misfired on quite a few things. Wow. And it just wasn't all that entertaining. Wow. And I was like, sorry, you and I have had any number of discussions with any number of other people about some of the misfires that Farscape has had that we struggled to stretch out to 30 minutes.
The last episode.
Sure, yeah. And if it weren't for my ranting and raving about lava as a many splintered thing, that probably would have been in that category too. But one of the things that is easy to get frustrated about for any fan of any particular show is when it seems like a show is being judged through a modern lens when it was a product of its time. But the trouble is, if you just stop the conversation at, well, at least they tried, then the conversation never advances past this graphic example. And the time that it takes to unpack why something is bad or truly how bad it actually is in a way that I'll own, I didn't realize everything that we've been talking about, requires that level of self-examination in order for the next thing to be better.
Mm.
The thing that comes after Farscape, and yes, I understand Farscape was 20 years ago, but the thing that comes after Farscape, in order for them to learn from and grow and be better in a, progressive way, there is that level of self-examination that's required. And there is that level of questioning biases. And in some cases, it's letting go of these little, really bad for you lollipops that you've held onto since childhood of characters that you thought were funny or cute or whatever, but that are actually something that somebody else has passed along that never needed to get started in the first place. So this is a longer discussion that we're having here, and it's worth it. It's worthwhile. I'm learning shit. I hope you are too. But we got to spend the time on it. We got to spend the time making sure that we can all understand. And I guarantee you, for all three of us, there will be any number of things that each of the three of us love in contemporary times that 20 or 30 years from now, somebody's going to go, oh my God. And we really need to dig deep into that, and yes, we do. Yes, we do. We're not done. We're not fully baked.
There's never a done.
Yeah.
You keep learning and growing because people keep learning and growing, and that's just life.
It's essential.
Yeah, and I think we want to do it generously as much as possible. We know that the makers of this, I really don't think they had bad intentions.
No, I really think it was at least they tried. They were trying to do something.
They were trying to do gender deliberately. I wonder, because this was written by a woman, I wonder if she was trying to criticize misogyny. And it just failed miserably.
Yeah.
And
on multiple levels.
Yeah, and I think the thing is about those lollipops, we don't have to. I don't believe we have to cancel, for example, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Because it's a fun musical. It's a fun film. I think it's kind of like we have to watch with an awareness. So we go, okay, that's fun. That's not stuff we want to carry forward. These are the elements that we want to be conscious of because we don't want to repeat them.
Right?
But we don't have to throw.
We don't have to throw Dumbo out. We just need to be very conscious about certain elements that are included.
Yeah.
Maybe don't repeat them.
Dumbo. It's about the terroir thing. If you're aware of it's like if it's what's in your grapes is gets in the wine. It's like if you're aware of if you do sort of a cleaning the soil thing, if we're talking about the thinking about,
let's get those heavy metals out of the soil before we grow.
But we don't necessarily, but we can still enjoy the stuff that was made before. We just have to do it with some caution and some understanding.
And I will say also that it's not all cut and dried,
Yeah.
No, certainly not.
It's not all only a Sith deals in absolutes. And I don't think any of us are Sith. But there are some things that I think are perfectly acceptable to throw out. I'm thinking of any number of Looney Tunes cartoons that I grew up on, at least, that didn't need to be there. But that doesn't mean that the entire Looney Tunes canon needs to get thrown out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and a lot of times things with their context are worth looking at, are worth studying,
so
are
that we
worth
can
remembering.
have these conversations.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know, this is reminding me a little bit of the conversation surrounding Confederate monuments. Like, you could choose to keep them and put them in a museum and talk about the Confederate history and then the resurgence of Confederate feeling around when those statues were put back up, and talk about why we don't keep them in public parks anymore and instead have them in a museum.
Mhm.
Like, that's a good lesson for people.
Mhm.
Or I would recommend our friend Kyle Calgren's video on why you should or shouldn't watch Birth of a Nation.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, that's he's so smart. But yeah, that's an excellent video talking about and there's also Cold Crash Pictures, who I don't know, but I do enjoy his work, who did a similar look at Gone with the Wind from someone from the South who loved that work of art, wanting to critically examine, because
yep.
And the same way that I love, one of my absolute favorite films is Lawrence of Arabia. And that is some complicated shit.
Yeah. That's a thing for an Arab woman to say, right?
Yeah.
It's a film.
Well, I love Omar Sharif. But yeah, and that is a very complicated discussion, that film, because they were trying to comment on colonialism and the whole white savior stuff, but they were doing it when they were legally not allowed to criticize the colonialism on film.
So I think so far my favorite thing to come out of our discussion about this episode is understanding the context of why the fuck Rigel bit his nose off.
Did you notice that his blood wasn't red?
Yeah. I wasn't confident it was blood. I thought that was all just snot.
No, unfortunately, they showed us enough of his snot that his snot is just clear like everybody else's.
That was KY jelly.
I really, really wish that they hadn't. But
Farscape is going to Farscape.
But I just, to sort of bring that back around is this is another of those things of Jews aren't quite human.
Oh, geez.
And there have been rumors about black blood or horns, a very popular one. Even to the point that the famous statue of Moses. Thanks. But that the poisoning as well was another Jewish stereotype, because a lot of Jewish medicine had firmer roots and connections to scientific basis than a lot of things that were in Christian cultures. So the Jews were always not getting sick when everybody else did. Rituals about hand washing. Who knew? We would never institute rituals about hand washing to prevent the spread of a plague, would we? Who else had a 60-minute musical bit when they washed their hands at the start of COVID? But that's what these prayers are designed to do. You have a little ritual. You wash your hands. You say a prayer to make sure you've done it thoroughly. And then, you don't get sick when everybody else does. And then they blame you for it. So there are a lot of stories of Jews poisoning wells or, stuff like that. So yeah, the very Jewish stereotype doctor poisoning everybody for an extortion scheme.
The rest of Europe was killing all the wise women who knew stuff about herbs and things. So
Yeah. Which just means wise woman. Which just means wise. It's almost like they had medicine and then they killed it off because they had an anti-intellectual movement that hated women. So we won't repeat that, right?
Yeah, and I was just thinking, like the as you're talking about all the stereotyping and all the horrible stories around Judaism, and this is also an episode that fell ass backwards into transphobia, and we're talking about the monsterization. Oh, this is all reminding me, like, one of my favorite books about monster theory was written by a Jewish trans man called Jack Halberstam, who goes into how the monsterism is monster stories are a technology to tell people to sort of create the norm by monsterizing the other, and particularly that monster stories are a way of trying to stigmatize misogynation, because you don't want to mix with the other. And so in the same way that a lot of the anti-trans stuff and anti-queer stuff is all about putting people is reinforcing the correct boxes of gender that people are supposed to be in. It's almost as if it's all the same, as if oppression is always the same tune and different instruments. Plays out there. The specifics are different, but bigots are just not very creative. They're always playing from the same hymn sheet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So...
Yes. Well said.
Where are we on our list of?
I don't think we've talked about the chaser yet.
Yeah, we're down to the last one. We're down to just and no pun intended at all. We're down to just straight sexual
pun very
assault.
much intended.
Yeah. We have. I am disturbed by the parallels we have with Greza and also with Scorpius, that we have John being pursued by someone who wants to interrogate him and also assault him. And it's just, once again, we are reiterating the connections with those things. And there could be a opportunity to comment on something, perhaps the way that John has been treated, but instead
victimized, really.
Yeah, but instead it's just
played for laughs.
Yeah,
right. Like here,
it's a rape joke.
It is, and it's one that they just absolutely run into the ground. Like, they spend so much time making sure that they say the joke over and over. And it's just so unnecessary, and uncomfortable, of course, as well. Like, it's just not a fun time.
Funny.
Yeah, it wasn't even funny. Like, on top of everything else.
To be fair, like, a lot of times, if this is one of those moments where, like, if you're trying to put yourself in the mindset of 20 years ago when they were filming this, you can understand, like, why they might think jokes about this would be okay and would be something to riff on, but then it's not funny. Even if you go back to that mindset, this part is not funny. It's just predatory. It's just predatory.
Yeah, I think that's the only word for it.
I think the most interesting thing is that when they make it clear that he knows who John is, the sexual innuendo does not stop even a little. Because it's after that we get the long and hard comment.
Yeah, that also struck me as, like, extra tasteless.
Yeah.
And again, we're back to, one we've covered already of homophobia, but, like, it frames I mean, it frames any kind of homosexual attraction as innately predatory because it's the only instance that we get in this episode.
Definitely.
Well, except the parallel we get is Chiana kind of
true.
Attacking the woman and not quite exposing her breasts, but yeah, which puts Chiana in an even worse light that unintentionally they have paralleled her with this rapist.
Mm.
Chiana, who has also canonically been a victim of sexual assault.
Mm-hmm.
Not on screen. Well, yeah. And it's just, yeah, there is a saying that if you want good drama, you torture your protagonist, but not like this.
Not like this.
John has been...
You torture your protagonist, not your audience.
Yeah, and John has been traumatized so many times in so many ways, and sexually, and he's had his brain violated and his body violated and his consent violated, and
like we're good.
And they're not actually getting nothing story good is coming out of this. It's just beating him up for no reason and adding the emasculation element for why.
Yeah, like I was just thinking, in the previously section where they generally stick to stuff that they think is relevant for the upcoming episode, they have a shot of him and Aaron having this conversation where she didn't tell him that she thought she might be pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
What about that is relevant here?
I will say, I think that for the last this episode and the two before it, the previously on has been virtually identical.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little bit less worrying. But...
No, yeah, to a degree of it is giving me the impression that they're having trouble keeping the thread in the episode, and so they feel the need to remind the audience of the thread.
And that's another thing where they could have done something really interesting here. They have a setup with a very misogynist culture, a very gender essentialist culture, and you have a main character who is a pregnant woman. Badass.
Who comes from an entirely different sort of gender setup, because her fascist society sort of enforced masculinity on everyone, at least on all the grunts that we've seen. Greza is a different kettle of fish, but all the other female presenting peacekeepers that we've seen have been not very female presenting, and it's all it's
virtually crushing any sign of femininity. They cut their hair short. They they dress identically. They act, they gamble and drink and whatever identically, and
they eliminate ideas about compassion and romance and building relationships and connections. So anything, which those things are not innately feminine at all, but our culture does ascribe those to femininity. So yeah,
which is one of the things you love about Aaron and John's relationship, because John exhibits those so often.
Yes, true. This is the thing about why this episode is so fucked up. And so, well, I mean, there's so many reasons why this episode is so fucked up, but this is why this episode.
This is it.
This is why this episode makes no sense to me. Is because it's Farscape trying to do gender, but why? What purpose does it serve to try and do it deliberately when they've actually been doing amazing things in terms of gender commentary, sort of without conscious, I don't think, we're sitting down and going, we're going to discuss gender. The setup that they have created has had all this fascinating gender set with, like, Aaron, because we've done Aaron wearing a dress before and being uncomfortable with the whole, and being told she has to wear a dress rather than a suit when they visited Earth first, in quotation. And we've done the whole, John being in touch with his quote unquote feminine side throughout, which is not something he's ever been particularly resistant to, although he is a very masculine character. Why on earth are we doing this? Because we could have had an interesting version of this, perhaps, if it was like, this is a gender essentialized world. And Aaron has to play the role of woman, which, she doesn't actually usually do.
Yeah, or even Aaron gets kidnapped because pregnant women are sacred or some nonsense like that. Like, there are whole lots of things that you could play with here. One thing that is sort of in the background we haven't quite said out loud here is that all of these sort of fashy gender essentialist things are all reflecting, like, modern white Western culture and our view of masculine and feminine.
Yeah.
Like, there are other versions that exist in other places and other times. Like, this is not at all like, for instance, the ancient Athenian conception of gender.
No,
not at all. Or, I mean, gosh, the ancient Egyptian conception of gender. Let alone like the modern Japanese conception of gender. Like, there are hundreds of conceptions of gender that have nothing to do with what we're seeing here. This is very much like white Western culture that we're seeing reflected in these dark mirrors. And there are still so many more interesting things they could have done with it.
Yes.
And in ways that the show has already been so successful at, and ways that you at home know, but Sara, like, I have appreciated, and I've been pleasantly surprised, and I've been moved to tears a few times. To see a guy like John portrayed on screen as such a positive example of wholesome masculinity, and to have him holding up a purple bra and going like, black is supposed to be living because it's funny. Like, that's not John.
No, it's not John. It's not interesting.
No, there are still other jokes they could have made that would have been much funnier. Like,
this is what I'm
this
saying.
This is too big. What am I going to stuff this with? Like, we could have gone that way. That would have been funny.
Yeah,
because it would have literalized the fact that there's so many different ways along the way that this episode could have at least been tolerable. But I think and feel free to debate me on this, because I know you will. Is this the new Jeremiah Crichton?
Yeah, see, this is the question I was going to end with.
See, there we go.
Is this better or worse than Jeremiah Crichton? And I honestly, I think these are two different flavors of awful. So,
Jeremiah Crichton was like a deflated balloon caught in a tree. This is like somebody who thinks they have a flashlight, but they actually have a hammer, and they're trying to check your eyesight.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of the issue with Jeremiah Crichton was they had very different competing visions. All of which they went 100% at, and all of which ran straight into a wall.
Jeremiah Crichton was a
and
failure
landed
of production.
Backwards in racism.
Yeah, it was great. It made Pocahontas look, downright progressive. But Jeremiah Crichton was a failure of production. I feel like this was a failure of characterization.
Yeah. This was, nobody was on their A game.
No.
and well, maybe Rigel's puppeteer.
And I will say the directing was nice.
This is Ian Watson's last trip in the directing chair, and
poor bastard.
Yeah, and he
what
was
what a sad note to go out on.
And he was using Dutch angles the whole way through to try and mirror the uncomfortableness of the physical.
Well, it was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It was. He definitely made it feel uncomfortable, and like we were saying, some of the acting really hit. Even though what they were doing was terrible. Like early on when they're just eating and they're all like, "Oh, this is disgusting, but I'm hungry." And they have those like moments of like the flash and like the interruption. They don't even seem to notice.
That was clever.
Yeah, it was clever. It worked really well. It like subtly hinted that something nefarious was going on already before they know. A
lot of the body humor was pretty hilarious. The stomach cramps and
the stomach cramps.
Feeling all three of Rigel's stomach cramps, like that was funny.
I think
we're reaching here.
Rigel is the doctor. It was actually
Rigel bursting out from behind the curtain in the full doctor outfit was gold.
And with the
one thing I thought was actually kind of interesting is we've seen a lot of these characters being out of it for one reason or another. But they did do a really good job progressing through, like, from I'm uncomfortable to I feel sick to I am having trouble staying upright. And like you could really feel that progression.
The dialogue in the scene where Aaron and John visit the doctor was, I feel, genuinely witty. Like the comedy and the rhythm were very well executed. I was cackling.
Yeah.
John and Aaron trading off who was pointing a gun was very funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Scorpius stole the show. Scorpius was the least problematic character in this episode.
By far.
We need to sit with that reality.
By far. Oh, man.
He was the best ally. He was the hero. And he had no time or tolerance for any homophobic or transphobic bullshit. Like the way that Wayne played him when, Nazi gender dude was like, "Oh, well, at least Moya's piloted by a male." And Scorpio's like, yes. Like he could barely stand that guy.
Yes.
Yeah. And then he's just like, "No, I hate you enough." Crack.
Yeah. and like, was kind to the engineer. He was kind to the engineer. Like the way that he said, "Resume your work." It was reassuring. Scorpius is the hero.
This is the thing about Scorpius is he is not I'm evil, no, despite how he looks. I remember we had this conversation at the beginning, and I was like, I said, even Scorpius you may find complicates your idea of good and evil. But he is one of the reasons he's such a great antagonist is he is utterly and completely ruthless, but only when it serves his needs. Completely and utterly will do anything to serve his needs. But if it doesn't, he doesn't need to be evil. It's not going to serve his revenge.
He's just an ends justifying the means kind of guy.
Yeah.
He's not like actively malicious.
Most of the time.
Which we need to recognize as a society that active malice is not the only kind of harmful there is. But
yeah, because he has absolutely been perpetuating and expanding the fascist peacekeeper empire. So
he finds the peacekeeper empire a tool for his own needs.
Yeah,
that he will gleefully wield. But yeah,
gotta crack a few eggs.
Scorpius was the best character in this episode. What the hell?
Sadly, I find the idea, now that I've said it out loud, of this episode cracking any eggs to be very unlikely.
Yeah, no, sure, yeah.
Oh,
They'll crack some clams,
minus
though.
gender goals.
And
They will crack some clams.
That's the thing with the gender stuff, is like these kind of cross-dress kind of narratives, the ones that work tend to work because it's an opportunity to walk in another's shoes and to sort of expand your mind. So thinking about Some Like It Hot, which was where they went to. You think about that and like what happened there. Tony Curtis's character, from dressing as a woman, learns to empathize with women, and you think again about his like creepy ways and regret the way he treats Sugar, Marilyn Monroe's character.
John Crichton, from dressing as a woman, learns that the power to break a man's hand if he grabs your ass is really empowering.
Like, John doesn't, for the most part, have those kinds of character flaws that need addressing.
Mm-hmm.
He's all right. He doesn't, like, this is a plot device that doesn't serve anything.
Yeah. And then Jack Lemmon's character has the other thing of where it's a self-realization where if it was made today, we might recognize that Daphne is in fact who his character is. That this is in fact a woman, because the discovers friendship and romance and expands so much of themselves. And so, when think about what are some other cross gender, exploration things like Klinger.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of him in MASH is played for bad humor. But also there's a whole thing where wearing dresses is a space of rebellion for him, and becomes this sort of place of creativity and exploration as well. I am very fond of Klinger. For one, there isn't a lot of Middle East. He's a fairly early, Middle Eastern representation, because he's Lebanese and proud of it. And he's not ashamed of his loving dresses. Like, it starts as a bad joke, but it becomes something that he is loving, playing with expression and having this place for rebellion and stuff. And like Mrs. Doubtfire,
I was about to say Mrs. Doubtfire, it's a way for him to connect with the nurturing aspect of his personality and reconnect with his kids. He learns how not to be selfish by serving others.
And we have stuff also like that agent in Twin Peaks who is a trans woman, and that's certainly not perfect, but like that, they just accept her and it's okay. And like, I was just coming down to David Lynch saying, "Fix your hearts or die."
Or we lost Gene Hackman recently, and so I was thinking about The Birdcage. Love that film, and that is an opportunity to play with gender. And we have the whole Nathan Lane dresses in drag, and that kind of the conservatives, because they don't realize that he's in drag, they see the parent that he is to the son, and then those ideas get challenged, and at the end of the film, the conservatives have to dress in drag, and it's sort of like it's an opportunity to try out other presentations, to walk in another person's shoes. That is when these kinds of things are done well. They can still hit on bad, problematic shit.
Sure.
Because
Hairspray, where the mother is usually played by a man. Even in the movie, they had her played by a man, and it's meant to be a joke, but it's also not a joke because of the message of Hairspray. It's not ever questioned that this is a woman. This is a woman who is a mother and a wife and beloved, and she's just living her life, and why would anybody bother her? And the message of Hairspray is all about that. So even though it's like, why is this always played by a man? Like, at the same time, it's like, well,
it's a tribute to Divine, who originated the role in the John Waters film.
So
that's why.
But it's also like it's got this cultural punch of like, we know that it's somebody who we identify in the time as man when it's put on stage, when it's John Travolta in the new film, which, by the way, was like shocking to me, not because it was drag, but because I didn't think John Travolta would do it. Like the image that he puts off in every other film, the manliest man in some version, whether it's, the 70s disco king or, the hard ass killer, like he's always been that guy. And that's why I think they wanted him. And that's why I didn't expect him.
Or another one I was thinking of, Kinky Boots, where they, which is another way of playing with gender, where they, straight folks from north of England start making boots for drag queens. and then, there's a whole, exploration of literally walking in each other's shoes to try and expand your mind and get out of prejudice. Like, this is what, when these things are done well, this is what it can be, as opposed to, like, say, White Chicks or Norbert or any number of SNL skits where
I was going to say, like, just the Eddie Murphy canon.
Where you dress as other to mock the other.
Although there is more to the Medea series than that, and that's not something I have the expertise to talk about.
Nor do I.
But
I have that involves more issues than we have experience to discuss. We're talking, when you bring in race, things are always more complicated. And here we've been talking about just the complications of just the Semitic peoples, Middle Eastern people and Jewish people representations.
Although if you want to talk about an interesting moment in Eddie Murphy canon, touching on potential anti-Semitism, there is a scene where he plays an old Jewish guy, an old white Jewish guy with a thick New York accent. And it's great. It's just legit great. There are ways to play with these things that don't end in disaster. You just have to be respectful about it.
Yeah, you have to legitimately try and see things through through other people's eyes, walk in another pair of shoes. And that is something that Farscape has experimented with before. Like, we had the out of your minds, where they were in each other's brains or in each other's bodies. And, they've done all sorts of things and done them well, but
this was not
it's
one
like it's like, we've done really complicated, weird stuff, and now we're going to attempt a basic waltz and fall all over ourselves. Just throw out most of this episode.
Yeah. And I don't feel like there's any. I don't think like.
Next
I don't know,
episode is going to be interesting.
I don't know because obviously I did not see what comes before, and I have not seen what comes after. But I don't feel like there's any plot that happened in this episode.
We acquired a doohickey so we can travel in tormented space.
Which so far hasn't meant a damn thing. And Scorpius's role in the crew is becoming more and more trusted. Mm-hmm. That's about it.
That's true. That's true. Scorpius playing the hero is probably the thing that comes out of this.
Yeah. And which I'm sure will in no way bite anybody in the ass later.
Yeah. I realize there is one last bad trope that we didn't unpack.
Oh.
The repeated discussion of madness.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, we didn't get into that.
We did not.
And I don't think we have I don't think either us or the listeners have the mental real estate to really go into that now.
It was bad. So
I mean, what I'll say about it is that it was very surface, and that they didn't go into it either.
No,
they didn't, and they also the bad guys were using madness badly.
Yes.
So, to me, that is much less egregious than the writing co-signing how the good guys are being transphobic.
Yeah.
The bad guys were using it as an excuse to euthanize people.
Well, one thing about it was that it was very clearly a virus that they were worried about because it's apparently transmissible. And the symptoms, if the poisoning, if the clam poisoning mimicked the symptoms of this so-called madness, is not really a madness at all. I don't know why they even think it's that.
I thought that the clams were the madness.
No.
Yeah, because the fascist dude bro mentioned we had to execute 3 people recently.
Yeah, that's correlated with the clam assassinations.
Exactly. So the clams are causing the madness.
The doctor says that these symptoms are the same.
I think we can assume that the fear of space madness had existed before the clams. And it's so general. It's this is just hysteria, isn't it? We're just doing hysteria.
That's what I got. Yeah. I didn't get that there actually was a space madness that was transmissible, but that it was the clams that had been causing the impression that space madness was transmitting.
I think the idea was this society is afraid of madness.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, even that, because it's so specific that the doctor is the symptoms of this poison mimic the thing that they're afraid of. Mm-hmm. That was emphasized for me. So it's this isn't even.
Yeah, it's is there an actual illness at all, or is it just like hysteria where she's being a woman inconveniently, so we're going to put her in an insane asylum?
That's the shit I was picking up. That's what I thought they were putting down.
I wish I had thought that. I did not get that at all. That would have been so much more cohesive with the story.
I not that they actually developed that, but I'm is that where we're going from? Just
whatever they meant, clearly they didn't write it well.
Crazy people, yes. Because historically there's been a fear of she's just crazy, and it usually ends up gendered. And
then you get people worrying about social contagion. Hello, modern age. Hello, weird medicalist transphobes. Hello,
RFK Jr.
So yeah, it was bad.
Yeah. So we may next episode have a discussion, if there's time, of some of the ideas about madness in this series, because next episode our guest will be Aronok, who
that'll be fun.
Is an expert in Satanism, among other
Looking
things.
Forward to it.
And she just recently finished the series, so
that'll be fun.
Yes. I was as soon as she talked about, she was blue skying about Farscape, and I'm must get you on the podcast.
Indeed.
Yes.
That will be a good time.
Aranak has amazing thoughts on about various things, especially gender stuff. So that'll be a treat for next time. Josh, are you ready to hear the title of the episode we will be discussing with Aranak?
I can't begin to describe to you how ready I am to hear this title.
It is called Unrealized Realities.
Ooh. Okay.
You're going to want to watch this one a couple times.
Okay.
Sounds exciting.
Yes. I wish we had time to do a reaction record on this one, but we don't because of fest scheduling stuff. So we'll just have to imagine what Josh's first reaction to.
Oh, I'll bring all that energy into the discussion. Don't worry.
And I think we'll do a reaction to the episode that comes after it. So yeah, that. Do you have any predictions for Unrealized Realities?
Well, I mean, I have because I'm familiar with sci-fi and because I'm familiar with Farscape, I have a very mundane prediction that we're going to get alternate realities. But also because of how infrequently the titles actually are what I think they are. No, I don't.
Well, those in the know, no, there's no way you could guess what's going to happen next episode. So that will be fun.
Me this entire time. It's true since episode 2.
This is my version of a poker face.
Yes. No, you've gotten so good over the years.
Oh God, we have been doing this for years.
We have been doing this for years.
So I know that this is going to be difficult, but of all of this, what was your favorite part?
I think my favorite part was watching John walk into the club and finally getting to see him in drag.
Yes, he was very pretty.
I don't know if he was attractive, but it's just like, oh good. They made him just look like a woman instead of doing drag queen makeup, which they kind of did with Rigel. And I was just like, oh, you just look like a woman. That's great. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I assumed he was attractive.
It was good drag queen makeup. Yes, he is attractive.
He had a good swagger with it too.
But the hair, the posture, the dress was immaculately chosen. I don't know what he was objecting to. That dress was fabulous.
Yeah, and the John we know would have been like, I look good.
Yeah. I think that's final nail in the coffin. The John we know would have had fun. Mm. I'm torn between two things. Between the just absolutely mundane way that they kept Dargo out of action for the entire episode by having their auntie fall asleep on him. And especially during the action climax, the soundtrack didn't stop and they cut to Dargo trying to reach for the cup. And then they went back to the action. It was just
that was pretty funny.
So it's either that one or it's the hard cut of Rigel force feeding the clam to the doctor and just the whole time that he's doing it. Those are I think were my two favorite parts of the episode.
My favorite is Dr. Rigel and the Zircon-Bobs. He's good. Well, everyone can benefit from the removal of some body part or the other periodically. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was funny. But yeah,
good luck editing this.
Yeah, I think this is likely going to be a 2-part episode because there's so much.
You'll have to let me know if this is our record holder for longest episode or not.
We'll see.
I think this one might be in the top 5.
I think we had when Lonnie joined us for the two-parter, the Nerve and Hidden Memory, I think holds it for our longest, because and that was 2 episodes. And that was we love this. There is so much to unpack. And this was, we hate this. There's so much to unpack.
We appreciate you guys sticking around for all this discussion.
Yeah. Yes. And I hope that we gave you some food for thought. I recommend checking out Jesse and Vera's discussion of the episode to hear from people affected by trans misogyny. And and I think we'll just take this moment to say how much we all of us have a number of trans friends and relatives that we that are very dear to us. And I know it's not my country that is. Well, my country isn't doing great either on these issues, but
it's not a competition.
No.
Unfortunately.
It is it almost feels as if certainly Britain and the US are in a race to the bottom on who can be more awful to trans people. And but yeah, we just elbows up. we gotta fight for ourselves. We gotta fight for our friends. We gotta protect trans people, especially kids who are being victimized, because this is just shit. And so I'm going to put a link to Trans Lifeline and invite any watchers to donate, and just support folks, and just elbows up. So
Thanks,
Zylla, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me again.
For taking the bullet and watching this horrible episode.
I never was much for clams. I don't know if I'll be able to eat them ever again.
Just don't share them with anybody.
No chowder for me, thanks.
I like them, and I'm trying not very hard not. I'm sitting here in bisexual lighting, trying not hard not to make a joke.
I know you. I know exactly where you went.
Oh dear.
Yes, so we really appreciate you.
Yeah, we do very much. Do you want to tell the folks where they can find you?
I run a YouTube channel called Zylla's Athenaeum and a Twitch channel called Zillable. That's syllable, but with a Z. I'm also at Zillable on Blue Sky and Mastodon. And I do lots of ancient studies stuff, gaming stuff, and general lefty save the world kind of stuff if I can. So thanks for having me aboard. It has, as usual, been quite an enlightening experience. I used to say you only had me on for the heavy stuff. This is not that.
Well, it kind of is. Falling ass backwards into cultural commentary. Josh.
Sara. You can find me over on Instagram at Josh Gosdin. Come on over and let's just, let's hang out. Let's take care of each other. Let's lift each other up. Sara.
You can find me at the Fat Culture Critic on YouTube, and you can find me on Blue Sky mostly. You can also find the podcast on Blue Sky and on Patreon, and we also have a Discord link in the doobly-doo, and email. So if you want to send, I'm not going to read any comments for this episode.
Really?
We read one, and there are some others on this episode, but we talked.
I would say I feel like we've found other ways to fill the time this time around.
Yeah. Please remember, folks, we do love this show, even as we've been criticizing it.
Yes,
this
please.
is a we
I
know
am
the
enjoying this
standard
show.
you can meet, and it's not this.
Yeah. I am enjoying this show. I know I sometimes come across as very critical, but I am enjoying this show.
And it's important to criticize the things you love, while also understanding that people were doing their best in the moment, and with deadlines coming up, and et cetera, and et cetera, and et cetera.
I think we're good.
Yeah. All the wishy-washy caveats of that. But
Disclaimers. We said
Nuance.
Sometimes shit happens.
Thank you, Zylla. We gotta go, y'all.
I think we're getting punchy.
We are absolutely good.
Good night, folks, and thanks again for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. Someone had to be on set refreshing the KY jelly on his prosthetic nose, which is just one of those.
That's the line. That's the pre-credits line right there. Editing Sara, put that at the front.
Oh boy.